Looking right at me. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Prad Paramahansa, Parujikacharya Astotoda Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parujikacharya Astotoda Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Guru and Gaurangi. What is it?
It's short for Kapikanchan and Guru.
Oh, okay.
She's looking at me so hard.
She's been very quiet. Can she stay that way? I mean, if she starts chanting the verse, I'll know that something supernatural is definitely happening. Let's see what happens. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All right. What is this? The 10th now. Okay. All righty. Oh. Now, you know where we are? I'm pretty sure I know where we are. We are on, I think 20, or is it, are we on 18? I don't think we did 18. Yeah, let's do 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 10th day of April 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 14 entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. Text number 18 on page 581. Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam Gachanti Satvastha Madhye Tishtanti Rajasaha Jaghanya Gunavritti Sta Adho Gachanti Tamasaha Urdhvam upwards, Gachanti go, Sattvastaha those situated in the mode of goodness, Madhye in the middle, Tishtanti dwell, Rajasaha those situated in the mode of passion, Jaghanya of abominable guna quality, Vrittistaha those whose occupation, Adaha down, Gachanti go, Tamasaha persons in the mode of ignorance. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Purport. Page 581. Purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka, but the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle, between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth, in the mode of passion or ignorance, cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It is the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level, there are 8 million species of life, birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasaha is very significant here. Tamasaha indicates those who stay continuously in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is an opportunity for men in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity will certainly continue in the lower modes. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, we are approaching the end of this chapter, and Krishna is now defining the destination of those who develop their various modes of nature. We are making our own destiny with what we do. What we choose to associate with, who we associate, what we eat, what we hear, what we see, what we read, what we say. Everything is in these modes of nature, a unique combination. Nothing appears pure. But because it's the mode of, because it's the age of Kali, the age of passion and ignorance, the modes of passion and ignorance are very prominent. And so without coming in contact with this wonderful process of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, which Prabhupada explains, can help us to rise from the mode of passion and ignorance to the mode of goodness, and if we pursue it, even beyond the mode of goodness to the mode of pure goodness, then we're going to be victimized, undoubtedly. We're going to be, in the very, very little goodness is involved. It can be there here and there, but mostly it's mode of passion and ignorance. And therefore, at the very best, we'll be reincarnated as a human being, but still it'll be the Kali Yuga, and it's very difficult. So, as Prabhupada says, we should take advantage of this process, this knowledge that Srila Prabhupada so arduously and ardently gave us, precisely so that we could make our life successful and actually find the path out of these modes of nature. So this discussion of the modes of nature is part of what we call the Sambandha, Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of this world, the creator of the world, where we fit in, what's our relationship, all of these different things are practically unknown in the secular world. They are unknown. And because unless one starts with the basic principle that we're spirit, not matter, that we don't belong here in this situation. It's not that, you know, you find yourself born in a certain body, a certain gender, a certain place, certain language, all of these, and that's who you are. That's the prime illusion that we have, identifying with this body, both gross and subtle. And there's no way around it unless you get a clue to a different kind of vision, which comes from the knowledge, and also the process by which one can realize the knowledge and accept the knowledge. Because it's all too easy to participate in the process and make some advancement, but if you neglect the cultivation of the knowledge, then you can easily commit offense, and then your entire vision changes and you think this is the dream and out there is a reality. It's possible. So therefore, Prabhupada insisted on these regular classes. He really wanted us to study the books that he worked so hard to produce so that we can stay fixed and on the auspicious path back to Godhead. Okay, any questions on this verse and purport? It's quite definitive, but it can be accepted only by those who are practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay, text 19. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyascha padam veti madbhavam sodigacchati. When one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these modes of nature, and he knows that he knows the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. Purport. One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn this science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes. But when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he's situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. For one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases. So somehow a verse comes to mind. Yat pada pangaja palasha valasa bhaktya karmasha yam gutitam udgutayanti santa tadvan riktamatiho yatiho piruddha sroto ganastamadhanam bhajavasudevam. This is one of the last instructions of the 4 Kumaras to Maharaj Prithu in the 4th canto. And what he describes there is that those Pada Pangaja Palasha Vilasa Bhaktya, those who are devotees, who are enjoying the spiritual pleasure of serving the lotus feet of the Lord, Karmashayam, the activity with the hope of enjoyment, in other words, fruit of activity, which is what's all being talked about in these modes of nature, gratitam udgatayanti santa. The grata is like the same as the grantas, is the knots that bind us to all these myriad of activities in the material world and keep us coming back birth after birth for suffering. They're udgatayanti, they're untied or they're cut for the santas, for the devotees, the saints. Just like we're sitting here in San Diego, Santa Rosa, the same word is there, saint. I'll tell you this story in a minute. Okay, but then on the other side, tadvan na riktamatayo. Riktamatayo means their minds devoid of what? Of bhakti. Pada pangaja vilasa bhaktya. Those who are devoid, the ordinary materialists, vast majority, but also the impersonalists, those who are aspiring to go to the heavenly planets, all of this, there is no bhakti there. There's other motivations. Sroto ganastavanana. Tadvanna riktamatayo yaptayopi Tadvanna riktamatayo yaptayoti dasroto ganastamadhanamba devasudeva. Sorry, there's a word missing there. That because their minds are devoid of bhakti, even though they strive to avoid entanglement in the material world, they may meditate, they may try to rise up to the Brahman platform, impersonalism or something. And some may even succeed in that. But because there's no bhakti there, either they fall down from there, or their efforts to combat or to control the material desires which are in everyone's heart fail. They cannot go back to Godhead. They cannot transcend the modes of nature. Therefore, you're advised to worship Vasudeva. In other words, to worship Krishna. The bhakti rasa, the pleasure that comes from serving Krishna, even in the the neophyte stage, even in the beginning stages, helps one, provided that he has good association and that he's studying and purifying the intelligence, strengthening the intelligence, enables one to restrain oneself from activities that simply tie more knots and continue our spell under the modes of material nature. So that's the great uniqueness of Lord Chaitanya's movement, is that it provides even someone who simply takes full part in chanting. You may not know anything about the philosophy, but you're attracted to chanting and you're absorbed in the man. You have a 3-hour kirtan. You're going to experience transcendence. Now, you're not going to become pure because of your habits and conditioning. You'll come down from that. But it'll have an indelible effect on your consciousness. Even if that's all you do, one kirtan, one class, as probably one page, if they read one page of the book, if they read one sentence, if they just read one word of the Krishna book, he told his servant, Shruti Kirti, famously, their whole life can be transformed. This is the potency of the pure sound vibration as given by the pure devotee. And faithfully transmitting Krishna's original transcendental sound. So to see that we're like, this whole vision that's outlined in the 5th chapter also, that we don't really do anything. I mean, as souls, we're simply desiring, and the whole mechanism of the body under the guidance of the demigods, ultimately the super soul, is carrying out our desire. But then we may desire something and we're not eligible because of our karma or whatever to actually get that fulfilled. And try as we might, we can't achieve it. You're in a car crash, suddenly you're paralyzed from the waist down, you can't walk anymore. All those desires, it's a depressing situation. But a devotee who understands I'm not this body can still be very enlivened, even in that. I remember when I had the privilege of going to Russia. How many times did I go? I think 4 times. And once I was in this festival. They have a festival there on it used to be in Divnomorsk, right on the Black Sea. But the elders of the Russian church were getting uneasy about us, and so he bought a whole piece of land there. We had to move it. So I was one of the last ones in Divnomorsk. It's right near the Black Sea, and we had a nice little Rath Yatra and everything. So many devotees, all Russian devotees. It wasn't even for all of Russia. It's too big. It was just those who were on the western side, but still there were over a couple of thousand devotees in this big hall. Kirtan, I have some pictures. It was, the hall was built in the Soviet era. And, they had no provisions for ventilation. So I'm just soaked in perspiration, a little kirtan. But it was so ecstatic. And I remember watching, there all kinds of devotees came. And one fellow, he had some kind of disease where he can hardly walk, and he just had these 2 canes, And he'd strain, and then he offered, dandavats. It was just so impressive. And he got up, and his face was brilliant with happiness. Here he was with all these devotees, and the kirtan was going on. Even though that, very difficult situation, the soul was being enlivened, and he said, yes, you have this, and he's thinking, okay, this is some karma I got, But in other words, someone like that would be constantly depressed, the mental thing that goes on if you can't live in this world. So that's the sign of the beauty of Krishna consciousness, to really take you out of the bodily concept of life and to give you the firm understanding this is a temporary situation, and I can still chant Hare Krishna and be Krishna conscious, which is the source of all pleasure. So that's only available to the devotees. The impersonalists, they have the very few staunch ascetics can practice the severe austerity to rise up above the modes. They come to the mode of pure goodness, but they're not devotees. So the best they can do is come to the Brahman platform. So there's a famous verse, you may have heard it before, Prabhupada would always quote it. Krishna is in the womb, Devaki, he's about to appear, and the demigods gather incognito in that dungeon, that comes this place, and they're invisible. But they offer these beautiful prayers, and amongst them is this key prayer about the Brahman not being a secure platform. So ye and ye, there's others besides your devotees. They've just been describing the glories of Krishna's devotees. So ye and ye are the Bindaksha. They're addressing Krishna in the womb of lotus-eyed Lord. Ye and ye the Bindaksha vimukta maninas tvayas bhavad abhishuddha buddhaya. Aduha kritrena parang padang tato patang chedho anadrita yushmarangreya. So there are others besides your bhaktas who think that they're maybe liberated. They've achieved some platform in Brahman, and they think they're liberated, vimukta maninas. But they're opposed to you. They don't accept you, my Lord. Trayashta bhavad, because abhishuddha buddhiya, their intelligence is not purified. And so even though a few, by adhuha, kritrena, they rise up into the Brahman platform, the parampadam, transcendental Buddha, through severe austerity. This is one of these anamana poetic words. You know what anamanapiya means? It sounds like what it means. It means like what it sounds. We have a lot of them in English. Sprinkle, And so this is kritrena. It sounds like austerity. Kritrena. Parang padang, to the platform. Patantyado, they fall down again. Why? Anadvidishmarungre, because they are averse to serving your lotus feet. So, but devotees, they don't want to go to Brahman, But even unwittingly, they're liberated. This famous verse by Bhagavad Thakur from the Krishna Karnamrita is Bhaktis tvayis tada bhagavan yadisyan daiveda nakpalati divyakishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmata kamagata yaksamayak patiksha. So he's speaking directly to Krishna. Now, I don't know if you ever, I realized this is quite a few years ago, but the very name of his book, Krishna Karnamrita, is very unusual. Because he named the book Krishna Karna Amrita, Nectar for Krishna's Ears. Well, that's pretty bold. I'm writing a book, I said, boy, this is such a great book, it's going to be Nectar for Krishna. But he's writing the book, and as he's writing the book, he's seeing Krishna. He couldn't see physically, but he's seeing him at every moment. And Krishna is relishing the verses himself. Yeah, this great nectar for Krishna. Anyway, near the end of the book is this verse. So he's speaking to Krishna, Bhaktis tvayi, bhakti unto you, O Lord. Stiratada, very firm, very pure and determined bhakti. Stiratada bhagavan, O Bhagavan. Yadisya, if one can attain that platform, then one will get the fruit of that bhakti. Bhakti strayita tada bhagavan is daiveda nakpalati, the fruit. Daiveda, the divine fruit. Daiveda nakpalati. What is that fruit? Divyakishora murti, a vision of your divine adolescent form. Not mukti, not money, not anything else. Just your darshan. And as far as mukti is concerned, mukti swaya, mukti personified, is standing by the door. She's not even coming in. She says, okay, if he needs me. With the Anjali. How can I serve you? In other words, mukti is already there automatically. And whatever I need of dharma, artha, and kama, because you got these four, right? Because you need a little kama, a nice feast, something, that's also, they're also ready to serve, So that's where mukti comes in. You don't worry about it. It's not your goal in life. Whereas for most people, like the Kumbh Mela, most people come there because liberation is available, right? put on your wetsuit, and it's January 13th all the time. It's freezing in northern India. I'm just joking. I don't know, but I mean, okay, 85-year-old woman wants to get liberation and goes in 2-degree weather. Yeah, right then get liberation going. Anyway, but that's the motivation for most people. Prabhupada, 3 times he took the devotees there, because he lived in Allahabad, Prayag for years. He saw a couple of those. And but they didn't come, looking for liberation. They came to preach. They did all Harinam, a lot of prasadam distribution, and preaching and so on. So it's highly coveted. I mean, this mukti, it's oh yeah, birth, death, old age, and disease. Yeah, let me get out of that. But for a devotee, it works. It's interesting because Krishna talks about that here. One janma mrityu jana vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam in the last chapter. That was one of the 20 processes of knowledge that's so important to keep it in mind, because that works as a motivation from behind. I sometimes give this analogy. Krishna is so attractive. You chant Hare Krishna, you see the deity, you hear of his Leela. He's inviting you, he's attracting you to come and serve him. But we're so conditioned that, we're up and down, we get diverted by sense gratification. So, behind us, so Krishna is saying, come, and we're moving up on the path. And if we get if we're smart, we'll keep that in mind, that Durga is behind us with her tridents, which represent the 3 gunas or the threefold miseries, whatever. And say, okay, you're getting a little distracted here, move on the path. She's coming from behind and telling you get off this path, or you just and then you have to deal with the earth, birth, old age, disease, and death. So that's a good first motivation. But ultimately, you forget about that, because the pleasure of bhakti rasa, if you can reach that stage, is so attractive that you don't even consider it. And you can see the power of that bhakti rasa in the lives of the Goswamis, how renunciation comes naturally. What is that? When they met Lord Chaitanya, right? So Rupa and Sanatan, they were the right and left hand of the king. One is the finance minister, the other was the prime minister. When they saw Lord Chaitanya Ramkeli, then they offered this prayer. Everyone knows it. We can chant it together. Namo Mahabhadanaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Goda Chuje Namaha. Oh, you are Krishna himself, most munificent. Just to let you know, there's a distinction between the word munificent and magnanimous. Magnanimous means basically forgiving. Now, Lord Chaitanya was both. I mean, he did that with Jagai and Madai, that's for sure. We need that. But he's most famous. Why is he Mahavadanyaya? Krishna Prema Vadayate, because he's giving Krishna Prema freely, the most valuable thing, even beyond mukti. So we've come in contact with that, and these very wealthy, influential individuals. And it's interesting to note, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, they were both younger than Lord Chaitanya, which I never thought of. You always think of them, well, they're in the 40, 50. No. They were born 1-2 years after Lord Chaitanya. But they were already in the government, you can imagine, 22 years old. So Lord Chaitanya said, you go to Vrindavan and you resurrect the place of Leela Stan, and you write the books, and you establish it. And then he met them, one in Allahabad and one in Banaras, and instructed them, and especially Sanatana Goswami, a whole month, and Lord Chaitanya and Rupa for about 10 days, I think it was. And then then from on the basis of those teachings, they then wrote the books. The first book was Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Yeah, a very important book. And of course, the nectar, devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Jiva Goswami, he became their student. He was their younger cousin. And he incredible intellect, devotee. So the reason I brought it up is that after they met him, then they left their posts. The whole idea was, how can we get free? Sanatan was in prison, and he was able to bribe his way out. So then they settled in, And they said in Vrindavan, and what was the song, you know, the famous, this is my favorite of the prayers, Chaktva, Turna Mashesha Mandalapati Shading Sadat Tuchavat. So they quickly did it. It doesn't look like they have to, oh, can I give it up? Can I not give it up? You know, it's like, whoa, we're out of here, you know. Turna means immediately. Chaktva Turna Mashesha Mandalapati, endless influence and wealth, you know. A whole boatload full of gold, solid gold. You can imagine what that would be worth today. Rupa Goswami cashed out. Amandalapati Shreni Sadat Tuchavat. They gave it up as completely insignificant. And what did they do? Bhutva Dina Ganeshiko. They were completely aware that what they were doing was for the benefit of the fallen souls. Bhutva Dina, the wretched of the earth, like us. Gana Ishiko, they became the leaders and the teachers through their writings for say, generations, centuries. Karunaya, out of mercy, Kopina Kantashito. And they took shelter, all they had was, you know, a kopine and some rejected cloths. And they didn't have any dwelling, they hardly slept, you know, they begged their food, you know. So they were as poor as you could be externally. No dwelling, you know, nothing, you know. But Gopi Babarasamritam Lahari Kallola Magnomohor, they were the wealthiest in the world because they were diving and swimming in the ocean of Gopi Bhava, the highest levels of bhakti prema, and they're experiencing that at every moment. So that's the ideal, and that's exactly what's being spoken of here. And Krishna will teach Arjun. Arjun will ask, well, Krishna says one should, the next verse we can read, that one should transcend these modes. Then Lord Chaitanya, and then Arjuna will ask the natural question, well, how do I recognize one who's transcended the modes, and how can I transcend the modes? You know, that kind of culminates the whole chapter. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, any questions, comments? Madbhavam Sodika. So Krishna is saying, or you transcend the modes, you can come to my nature, you can come back to God. That's the last phrase of this 19th verse. All right, text 20. Gurtan etan atitya trin dehi deya samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkaya vimukto mitam ashnate. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes associated with the material body, produced of the body, it says in the word, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Amritam ashnate. Purport. How one can stay in the transcendental position, even in this body, in full Krishna consciousness, is explained in this verse. The Sanskrit word dehi means embodied. Actually, we changed that. It means the embodied. It's the embodied soul. It's a noun, not an adjective. In fact, that's what the synonym is if you look at it. The Sanskrit word dehi means the embodied. Although one is within this material body, by advancement in spiritual knowledge, he can be free from the influence of the modes of nature. He can enjoy the happiness of spiritual life even in this body, because after leaving this body, he is certainly going to the spiritual sky. But even in this body, he can enjoy spiritual happiness. In other words, devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the sign of liberation from material entanglement, and this will be explained in the 18th chapter. When one is freed from the influence of the modes of material nature, he enters into devotional service. So that's the whole point of explaining these modes, is that we can recognize them in our own lives and work to transcend them. And I think you probably have figured out that the means of transcendence is Krishna consciousness, as we'll learn in text 26. Okay, so Arjuna asks a very good question. How do I recognize someone who's transcended, and how do I transcend? Arjuna Vacha Kairlingai Strin Gunane Tan Atito Bhavati Prabho Kemachara Katham Chaitangs Chinguna Nativartate. Arjuna inquired, O my dear Lord, by which symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these three modes? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of nature? Purport. So you got characteristics, activity, and the means to get there. Those three things. In this verse, Arjuna's questions are very appropriate. He wants to know the symptoms or characteristics of a person who has already transcended the material modes. He first inquires of the symptoms of such a transcendental person. How can one understand that he has already transcended the influence of the modes of material nature? The second question asks how he lives and what his activities are. Are they regulated or non-regulated? Then Arjuna inquires of the means by which he can attain the transcendental nature. This is very important. Unless one knows the direct means by which one can be situated always transcendentally, there is no possibility of showing the symptoms. So all these questions put by Arjuna are very important, and the Lord answers them. Very systematic. Okay, so here are the symptoms or characteristics. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Prakasham cha pravrittim cha Moham eva cha pandava Nadveshti sampravrittani Nanavrittani kankshati Udasina vadasino Gunayo navichalyate Gunavartanta ityevam Yovatishtati ningate Samadukha sukha swastha Samalostasma kanchanaha Tulya priya priyo dhiras Tulya nindatma sangstutihi Manapamanayos tulyas Tulyo mitradi pakshayo Savarambha parityagi Gunatita sa uchite. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pandu, he who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, or long for them when they disappear, who is unwavering and undisturbed through all these reactions of the material qualities, remaining neutral and transcendental, knowing that the modes alone are active, who is situated in the self, and regards alike happiness and distress, who looks upon a lump of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is equal toward the desirable and the undesirable, who is steady, situated equally well in praise and blame, honor and dishonor, who treats alike both friend and enemy, and who has renounced all material activities, such a person is said to have transcended the modes of nature. Purport. Arjuna submitted three different questions, and the Lord answers them one after another. In these verses, Krishna first indicates that a person transcendentally situated has no envy and does not hanker for anything. When a living entity stays in this material world, embodied by the material body, it is to be understood that he is under the control of one of the three modes of material nature. When he is actually out of the body, when he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature, then he is out of the clutches of the material modes of nature. But as long as he is not out of the material body, he should be neutral. He should engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord so that his identity with the material body will automatically be forgotten. When one is conscious of the material body, he acts only for sense gratification. But when one transfers the consciousness to Krishna, sense gratification automatically stops. One does not need this material body, and he does not need to accept the dictations of the material body. The qualities of the material modes in the body will act, but as spirit soul, the self is aloof from such activities. How does he become aloof? He does not desire to enjoy the body, nor does he desire to get out of it. Thus, transcendentally situated, the devotee becomes automatically free. He need not try to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. The next question concerns the dealings of a transcendentally situated person. The materially situated person is affected by so-called honor and dishonor offered to the body. But the transcendentally situated person is not affected by such false honor and dishonor. He performs his duty in Krishna consciousness and does not mind whether a man honors or dishonors him. He accepts things that are favorable for his duty in Krishna consciousness, otherwise he has no necessity of anything material, either a stone or gold. He takes everyone as his dear friend who helps him in his execution of Krishna consciousness, and he does not hate his so-called enemy. He is equally disposed and sees everything on an equal level because he knows perfectly well that he has nothing to do with material existence. Social and political issues do not affect him because he knows the situation of temporary upheavals and disturbances. He does not attempt anything for his own sake. He can attempt anything for Krishna, but for his personal self, he does not attempt anything. By such behavior, one becomes actually transcendentally situated. Wow, Hare Krishna. Sounds like a tough prescription.
Not the longest. There was one for a couple of pages, I remember.
What? Oh, in terms of the length of the purpose? Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, it sounds like a tall order to come to this point. So I'm reminded of a verse that's similar to a verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, I think. Kayena vacha manasindriyava buddhyatmanava nusasta svabhava kadodi yad sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. This is in the 11th canto. It's similar to the verse Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad johosi dadasi yat tapasati konde yamat kurishmarapam. It's the 9th chapter. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, do it as an offering to me. So this verse says a similar thing. Kayena, the body. Kayena vacha, the words. Manasa, the mind. Endriya, the senses. The buddhya, the intelligence. Buddhyatmana, whatever else is attached to the soul itself. Buddhyatmanava nusata swabhava, as that in your nature, as you inherited due to the modes, you have a certain configuration of these. Karodi yat yat sakalam parasmai. Whatever you do with those things in combination, you are thinking and you're aware, and it actually is. This is being done as an offering for Narayan. Karodi yat yat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. Iti means thus. I'm doing it as an offering to you. So to actually feel that way, in other words, every breath you take, every step you take, every thought you take, it's consciously done as an offering to Krishna, as for his pleasure. That's pure devotion. And in that state, things can happen, I mean, this is the material world. And your plans for serving Krishna may be carried out or not, but you're not attached to the end, to the goal. Because you're doing your duty as prescribed by higher authorities, and you're doing your best, and Krishna's in charge of the result. And so you're not dependent on the results of the activities or how someone may react to it or this and that. You're simply doing your duty, and you're thinking of Krishna at every moment. And the remembrance of Krishna and the service that you're doing itself is so pleasurable that obliterates any of the things that are going to happen inevitably in the material world. You're able to tolerate praise and blame, and even physical pain, things may happen. You're able to take that all in stride because you're not identifying with the body, you're identifying with yourself as a spiritual servant of Krishna. And that, we saw that with, Srila Prabhupada. He went through so much, and, austerities and difficulties, and yet he maintained his equilibrium. And his enthusiasm, he was never discouraged even with so many setbacks. This is another thing. He says he's doing his best, and Krishna will one day reward him, and he did. All of his faith and his struggle was confirmed. And that's happened also to his disciples, and disciples. Is that it's so wonderful. I think you're on that mailing list, that Vijay's mailing list for Sankirtan stories. Amazing stories. It was. I mean, Vijay's got a whole book of these now. His book. It's really. I worked on that book, and it's full of amazing stories. And this one, what was it? This someone is working. I forget where. I mean, when I was in like 5th grade, we learned when you're writing a news story is who, what, when, where, why. at least who, what, when, and where. You know, he doesn't put the where in. And sometimes it may happen 10 years ago, when, you know. But the stories are still great. So someone is distributing, I forget what it was, South America or maybe Italy or somewhere. And the person wasn't interested in the book. It was a lady. And so the person telling the story says that something came to me, and your name is Roberta, isn't it? And, how did you know? You know, it was like, she just and with that, you know, I'll take a book, you know, okay. And there's some other ones like that in there. Supernatural things happen. Huh?
He had some Siddhi to know the name.
It's just an ordinary book distributor, but somehow he said it came to me, you know, and why not try it, you know? So, and there's other stories like that.
He's been trying out every woman he's seen.
Well, that wasn't part of the story, maybe. Yeah. Oh, okay. We got a question or a comment.
Krishna.
Hi, Bo.
So, Dravida Prabhu, often we hear that Lord Brahma, not here, I mean, Brahma appeared from Vishnu, you know, from his
Yes, the navel.
navel. But
yeah.
I am curious to know where Vishnu appeared from. Like, how, is there anything related
That
to
is
that?
Vishnu. Oh, the Garbhodaksha Vishnu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Garbhodaksha. Like how he appeared and where, because when we see from our material understanding, right, we see outside planet Earth, it's all dark, it's all, you know, different universes and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Multiple universes, and it's all dark and everything. So where and how Garbhodaksha Vishnu appeared?
Well, what we get from the Shastra is that, you know, first you start with Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, you know, 3rd chapter, 1st canto, I think text 28. This is like the Paribhasa Sutra, because it gives a list. It's a Dash Avatar plus. There's more than Dash Avatar, but all these avatars, you know, are mentioned, and they did this, little verses. And then Krishna's even listed in there with Balaram. But then we get to the end of the list, it says, Etek Chang Sakala Pungsa Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. That's half the verse. So all of these avatars are either partial expansions or there's plenary expansions. You know, like Matsya and the Stringada, they're all, you know, full expansions. They're Vishnu Tattva. But there's others mentioned there, the Kumaras who are not. They're Shaktivesh, you know, like that. Okay. But, you know, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. But Krishna is Bhagavan himself, meaning he's the origin of all of that. The others are kala or anksha, they're preliminary or partial. So Krishna, he expands into the Chaturvyuha. This is, you know, it's Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and I forget one, and Vasudev, I think. Yeah. So then you get an expansion from Sankarshan, I believe, into second Chaturvyuha. Then you have Mahavishnu appears, right? Mahavishnu is the Karanadakashaya Vishnu. He's lying in the causal ocean outside the material world. And then eventually, when the creation is about to take place, he is expanding from breathing out all of these seed-like universes, and they gradually start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then somehow, I don't know how he does it, but he expands into each one of them as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So it's all coming from Mahavishnu, but he's an expansion of Sankarshan, who's an expansion of Balaram. I think Balaram is the first expansion. Like that. So it's one after another. They're the same person, but they have different functions. They manifest different powers. Only Krishna manifests all of them. He is 100%. And it's described in the Nectar of Devotion. You'll see there's a list of Krishna's 64 qualities. And the first 50 we can have to a minute degree also. Beauty, you know, I am Neta Suram Yanga Sarvasa Lakshana, Ruchidas, Tejasa, Yukto, Baliyan, physical, you know, all these things. But that's the 50, and we have it in a minute degree. But then there's 5 that we can't have, but that Shiva can have. Shiva's like in the middle. He's not a living entity, but he's not Vishnu either. He's Shiva Tattva. So he has these 5 extras. Then there's 5 more that Shiva can't even have, like all these universes coming out that bestowing liberation. Shiva doesn't give liberation, only Krishna gives. And they're possessed by the Vishnu forms in Vaikuntha and also by these Purusha avatars. So Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he manifests from that lotus, comes in, sits there, and then when the universe is going, he also expands one more time as Chirodakshai Vishnu, who appears on this Vaikuntha planet in the material world, which can become Dhruva-loka. There's an ocean of milk there, so Chirodakshai, he's lying there. And he expands within every atom and within everything. So there's one expansion after another. And, he as a super soul in every heart and every atom, so in this way he's all pervading. So how they do it, is inconceivable. I don't know. But, yeah, just see the picture. Yeah, that's good. And we run out of time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Sorry, no poem today. Maybe after RT.
After Nrsimha.
Yeah, after Nrsimha.
So I think we're on 26.
26. Okay, let me put the bookmark in there. Oh. Yes, 26 is the how. He gives the qualities, but then he gives the how to transcend. Kind of the culmination of the chapter.